Well, hello, hello. I'm going to interrupt for just a quick minute. Cassie and Cindy have just arrived. Welcome, everybody. Sounds like you are chatting about platforms.
Yep.
And it looks like we've got lots of individuals here. Well, thank you, everyone, for your patience. Thanks, Andrew, for chatting about Adobe Connect. And I'm looking back through the chat. Yeah, right? Yay. To see what kinds of questions came up besides platforms. Cassie, you want to say a quick hello as well?
Hi, everybody. Thanks for getting us started, Cindy.
You are welcome. I just said hello and thanked everyone for their patience.
Awesome. Awesome.
Sounds like everyone was chatting about platforms. How about in chat? What platforms are you using? Those of you that are here would love to hear that. I see Zoom, Adobe Connect, WebEx, Microsoft Teams, yeah. Google Meet, I see. Cassie, I'm going to ask you a question. What's your favorite platform today?
Oh, man.
2022.
Zoom. Absolutely. It works. There's lots of features and we're good to go. WebEx is a strong second. And then all the others, I just use them because people make me. Call me Mr. Opinionated over here. What about you, Cindy?
You know, I would second Zoom. I think Zoom has got all the features that allow you to have a really robust, engaging virtual class built in. And for those of you that are using Teams or you've got other restrictions, Zoom integrates with Teams so that you can use all the great features of Teams. And then when it's time for a live meeting, launch out with Zoom. You can also do the same with WebEx. WebEx meetings has really come a long way, and it's also a close second for me.
Do you remember me calling you a couple of years ago going, why do you like Zoom, Cindy?
I remember that.
Yeah, I'm fair weather. I'm fair weather. I like things that are easy to use and give me a lot of options because I like for the tech to not get in the way of what we're trying to do for the learning. And right now, Zoom's taking the lead with that. It used to be Adobe, though. You and I are both big time. Like, that's our favorite.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And it's really cool right now how things are changing and everybody's competing and everyone's paying attention. So it's cool.
That's a big silver lining, I think, of the last 2 years. We used to wait 2, 3, 4 years sometimes for an update to a virtual classroom platform. And now we're getting them every 2 or 3 or 4 weeks. And Evelyn, yes, I see your comment there. Zoom integrates with Teams. Yes, just do a quick web search on the integration. You'll find it. It's just a matter of when you go to schedule a live meeting, launches out to Zoom. It's integrated right in there. And Michael, I see your comment about being in the government, you have to use Microsoft Teams. Double check because in many government agencies, Adobe Connect is an approved platform. And even some of the government agencies I've been working with, Zoom has become approved. The Zoom for Government channel product that has extra security built in, as does Adobe Connect, the extra security built in. So if you're interested in making the switch, something to take a look at.
So in scrolling up, and what are some of the other questions that were coming in? I'm going to go up there and look while we're kind of talking here.
And I see Courtney's question. Cassie, while you're looking, I'm going to jump in and answer Courtney's question. How are breakout rooms with Zooms? Fantastic. So if you think about Adobe Connect, right, just you were comparing it. And Cassie, you actually have a really great way of explaining this, that Adobe Connect is a program you put things into. And Zoom is a program that's more based on screen sharing. So when you think about breakouts, you have to think about them differently. You're not setting them up in advance. You are creating them on the fly, maybe a way to think about it. Super easy to set up, and don't worry about the fact that you can't put files in there in advance.
Yeah, it's like I'm always comparing. When I wrote my producer book, I shared with people how I go about learning a new platform. And for me, there's always like, it's one of two types of platforms. It's either a builder, which is Adobe Connect. I go in and I build everything and it's all there and it stays there forever until I move it, or a revealer, meaning I'm going to have to plan everything on my computer because there's nothing in the virtual classroom until I press start. So WebEx and Zoom and GoTo are a little more like that. And so for me, I'm always looking at like, how do I do things when I'm in person? And so regarding breakouts specifically, you've got what you want people to do. And when you get in the room, are they going to be at round tables? And should I bring handouts for them? And can I put it all ahead of time, or do I just need to hand it out in the moment? And Zoom is so easy because I think it's because of the cameras. And so people can just all of a sudden be in the room. You don't have to have technically assigned a leader. I mean, you need a leader to get things going, but you don't have to assign anyone to lead. They can just be sitting there smiling at each other going, what are we doing again? And so as long as you've been clear on the instructions, they'll have a chance to at least smile at one another and get started, right?
Yeah. And when you think about that type of platform, what did you call it, Cassie? Not the builder, the opposite.
The revealer. Like
the revealer, thank you. So when you think about the revealer, it really is, so shift your mindset. So you have this game you want to play or gamification or load. Well, now you just put it on a website. Like I saw somebody else had the question, hey, I'm trying to integrate SharePoint. So maybe you have that file, that document, that game, that whatever you want people to see out on the website. So when you go to the breakout, you send them to that place and they collaborate in whatever that place is or do the game in that place. The latest version of Zoom, not the latest, but maybe 2 or 3 times.
One of the latest.
One of the latest. This, within the last 6 months, you can now push out a slide in Zoom breakout rooms. So they've added that feature in case you need to share a graphic, share a visual, share something. So
yeah, well, the people who came to my session earlier today on breakouts, hi Jennifer, by the way, we did nothing but breakouts for an entire hour. And one of the things I shared there, because Zoom being a revealer type platform, I can't preload content. So what I did is I just put all the instructions on Menti. And I used Mentimeter, and I had people just scan on their phones. So every time I sent them into a breakout, I'm like, look at your phone, there's your instructions. Yeah. So it doesn't matter what platform I'm in. And I love that. So you just need to know what to do in whatever way you give it to them.
Cassie, there's a couple things coming in chat that I think are related. Maybe we should talk about this. Brandon's saying, like, look, we've got this external audience that has really varying technical abilities, technical capabilities, technical resources. Courtney's comment is, well, we can't force people to use webcams, right? So just thinking about equipping our learners, equipping our users with what they need, and maybe backing up even from that. What do you need to successfully do virtual training? Well, technically, you don't need anything except an internet connection and a platform, right? We could be right here in video and have a great program. I could show you slides or visuals by holding this up or pushing something to your personal mobile device. But we like using tools. We like polls and chatting and whiteboards and breakouts and some of the other things like that. So if you have users who are not technology equipped, what are you doing to help build the business case, either in your business or with your learners? Hey, these are the things, these are the minimum requirements to attend to this program. This is what we're looking for. Maybe it's, hey, you can't be driving down the road in your company assigned vehicle and just have a smartphone on the dashboard thinking you can participate. No, we're going to go back to the systemic part. I have a client I'm working with right now. That's their issue, because they're drivers who are trying to attend training in between their delivery routes. And like, that's just not a great way to push out virtual training. Let's go back to the structure and the minimum. This is what's required to have good learning experiences.
Yeah. We talked about it earlier in the what do we need to be successful with breakouts? And in a lot of ways, it's what do we need to be successful with virtual training? And I just put the 4 things in the chat, but who remembers it from earlier? People need to be clear on what we're doing, motivated to do it. They need to be technically confident, not experts. And then 4, they need time. And so this, where does, like, how much of that is our responsibility? How much of it is their responsibility? And what do we need to do to put that in place and then support that the entire way through.
Yeah, agreed. Agreed. And if you think about cameras, so let's talk about cameras for a moment, because many platforms now are very video first. Think of Zoom, even WebEx, right? You log in and you're expected to turn your camera on and connect your audio. And I hear a question a lot, and I see it reflected in chat. Well, they don't have cameras, or they're not willing to turn them on. Well, first of all, if you've got a mobile device, you've got a camera. And that may be different from your laptop that you're connecting in with, but if you've got a mobile device, you've got a camera. Second of all, a lot of it is in setting expectations in advance. Hey, for this program, we're going to start with the cameras on. That doesn't mean you need them on for the whole hour. It doesn't mean you need them on for a whole 3 hours or for whatever your program is, but design times when we're having conversation, and then times when we're working on a breakout, or times when, right? Yeah, I love it. Cassie's putting in chat. We would love to see some more of you today. Turn those cameras on. Let's have a conversation. And some of it's just getting over watching yourself on camera. No one likes, very few people appreciate looking at themselves on camera, and that's okay. Just pop over that.
That's right.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, a ring light changed my life. I liked being on camera as soon as I got a ring light.
I got a different platform, and I'll think of the exact name of it here in a moment, but I got an external camera that sits on top of the software overlay that sits on top of my camera, so that Zoom, it has the touch-up lights, touch-up appearance, touch-up everything. But if you're in a platform that doesn't have that internally, I got a camera overlay that does that for me, that can completely make over your face if you want it to. I'll look and see what the name of it is.
Water. Here's that. Cheers with water. Pink water today.
Cheers. Cassie, you make me nervous though. You don't have a lid on yours. That makes me nervous.
No, I know, but I am very careful. And Kelsey, I saw that. Yes. Yes. I know. You know what? Now you've scared me, Cindy. You jinxed me, and I'm going to
I'm sorry. Cassie, you are the expert. You don't need a lid.
I'm going to hold on very tight now. I have a trick, you guys. You know how we were talking about this earlier today about purposeful silence or think time, and we virtual trainers are pretty bad at that. And so water is your trick. Ask a question and then take a drink.
Great tip.
I can't talk when I'm doing that, so at least I gave you 10 seconds. It's great. They'll get used to it too, and they'll like it. Yeah, thank you. We're in brilliance today, Andrew. That's my game. Cool. What else has been happening? What are some of the things you guys are doing? What are you? Cindy and I were talking yesterday, and we had a question for you. You can just enter it in the chat here. What are you really great at doing when you deliver your virtual training? Let's have a celebration of what we're really great at doing. I'm really great at taking a drink of water after I ask a question. What's yours, Cindy?
I'm really great at telling people where to respond, because if we have a platform that has tools and chatting and polling and whiteboarding and annotating and all those different things, and we've used them all, when I ask a question, they're like, well, where should I respond? And not really sure. So I think it's really important. And in addition to that, to always give two choices. So, hey, for example, if you've got a question, click on that raise hand button. If you don't, click on no. Hey, if you've got a question, type it in chat. If you don't, type the word no. That way, everybody's included, not just those who are over participating. Look at these coming in, Cassie.
I know. Dad jokes for the win. Be and chill if the technology breaks, because that never happens. Yeah.
Andrew, how do you do that? Make sure you're not leaving participants behind.
We rely heavily on the Adobe Connect green check mark and build those checkpoints in because, it's so easy to leave people behind. We try to foster that two-way communication since you can't look around the room and see confused faces. So we use the green check mark pretty heavily for that.
Yeah, you're getting that input in a different way. And I see your question. It's probably the same, Andrew, about reusing a single meeting URL. Yes, in your meeting settings. And it's out on my website under the resources tab, a guide to using Zoom. And you'll see a picture of it in there. It's the presenter's guide to using Zoom. Just choose recurring meeting under date and time instead of putting a date and time in there. And Cassie, there's another question under Q&A for you.
Cool. All right, got it.
From Eric.
Today's session on breakouts was great. You're welcome. Thank you. Any tips on keeping breakouts effective when you don't have the power to break out the audio? Oh, interesting.
So I've had people hang up and, all right, you're going to conference call each other, right? Yeah. For me and Cassie, please weigh in on this. I believe that breakouts in a virtual session should be only a few participants. It's very rare that you're going to have more than 3 to 4 per room. That's different from in person, but usually it's really small. They can 3-way call on a phone. I've done that before. What do you think, Cassie?
I mean, depending on the tool you're using too, if you absolutely cannot have them call each other on a different audio source, then letting them just work on either shared chat pods in Adobe or separate whiteboards in WebEx that you let them go to, or if you're using like a Miro or a Mural, you're sending them to separate places and they're not talking, but they're filling out information that would be typed or written. You know, I have done that before. And I've also been known to launch completely separate sessions, like in the olden days of WebEx Meeting Center before it had breakouts. And in the olden days of Teams before they added breakouts, it was like, here's a new team for you. Here's a new WebEx for you. It's like, don't let that system tell me what I'm going to do.
That's right. Absolutely right. And Catherine, I love the idea of doing them in pairs. I will do that as long as if someone's having tech issues, spotty bandwidth challenges, something, I'll make sure that they're in a group of 3. So some of my audiences, I'll do groups of 3 just for that reason. But, and Kelsey, great question. How do you know if people are finished in their breakout rooms? So many platforms will give you the ability to allow people to return to the main room. Zoom allows that. Teams allows that. Several of them do. So that's one way you can tell. In others, you can say when, if you've WebEx, if you've got a question or if you're finished, raise your hand. We can see it from the main room. So those were a couple things that I've done. Cassie?
Yeah, those things I've done as well. And then this is another thing I'll do is I'll turn off my webcam. Like if I'm wanting to check on Zoom, turn off my webcam and then I sneak in and they don't see me. And I just pop in and I can kind of gauge it. Sometimes they still see me, but I try really quick and it's
if they have the setting about show non-video participants, I've gotten caught that way. Oh, hey, there's Cindy. Like, oh,
I know,
that setting turned
later.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah,
but I tend to err on more time and then let them come back on their own. And it works quite well. Yeah, in fact, the really fun breakout activity is to tell them to finish and when they're done to come back. And I let like 2 groups come back and then I tell the others, sorry, you got to come back now. The others are done. They won. You know, there's a thing about it that happens and then they're like, but it does depend on the activity, obviously.
Yeah. And Courtney, you're correct. The comment about audio with Adobe. So always test, check, and test. Get every device you have, call a few colleagues and friends, test out your breakout functionality, and get really comfortable in that. I see some comments about names, using names, calling on people, incorporating names. I know, Cassie, you're always using people's names, as am I. Yes. I think that it is perfectly fine to call on people by name if you've set the expectation in advance and that you ask questions that don't have right or wrong answers. Now, that's actually controversial. I've heard some people say, no, don't ever call on people by name. What do you think, Cassie?
Oh, I use names all the time. I used to work at Dale Carnegie. And so the sweetest, most important sound in any language is a person's name. And I make it a thing. I try to pronounce your name. And if a name is difficult, I want to try it first. And I had a really long Russian name with my client yesterday. And I said, let me try first. And I actually nailed it. And he's like, you did it. And so then there's a thing that happens, and I just want to celebrate it and say, help me get it right. And, you know, how do you want me to refer to you? And it's a respect thing. And I think it's a really interesting challenge. And we're so lucky that it's written and in front of us. And so why not try it? That said too, I don't overuse it, and I don't ever use it in a way that would make someone feel uncomfortable. So I'm coming at it from a place of respect and recognition, not, you're not paying attention, Andrew, you know, not like that.
Yeah. So important.
Really important.
Joseph, your comment about using a lottery, right? If that's the tone that you set, having some fun, knowing that everyone's going to take turns, right? You've made this equal environment. We're all in this together. We're going to all be called on eventually. I think that's a lot of fun.
I agree with that, actually. I think the wheel of names is fun, but I think you have to set it up so that it's meant to be that way, you know, because it can get a little funny if you're sort of forcing interaction. So.
And similar to that, sometimes things that happen in person that you might spend 15 or 20 minutes doing is really fun. 15, 20 minutes is a long time online. So maybe you do it for a little while and then you come back to it later. So short segments sometimes can be better.
You know, by the way, I've been having a lot of fun. You guys made me think of it with names. Online-stopwatch. If you pay $7 for your membership for a whole year, you can enter your entire class, their names, into like a robot race for the timer. And so if you're ever having difficulty for people coming back from a break, put them into the robot race or there's other ones, but put their names in there, and they can't wait to see if they're the winner. And so they not only come back from break, they come back early because they want to see if they're going to win. It's excellent. Online-stopwatch. Thank you. And
You're
it's $7
welcome.
for a year to put more than 3 names in it, or 5 names or something. But yeah, definitely.
There is really fun stuff in there. I like there's a candle countdown and the puffs at the end.
Yes.
When the time is out.
It's fun. Little fun things like that. Well, I guess.
I know that we're just about out of time, everyone. Maybe we've got one question left. I'm looking at our Q&A. Clients who don't want to use other software or tools, polling, interactive breakouts, Menti. So most platforms these days have got those tools built in. If it's a training or a classroom platform, chatting, polling, webcams, whiteboarding, and designing creative activities using what you have. So even if you can't get out to a Menti, a mural, a Poll Everywhere, a Slido, anything, you can usually get really creative internally.
Yeah, I am actually a huge fan of less is more. I do some cake decorating sometimes, and less is always more on cakes, everybody. And so it applies in learning too with apps. You know, it can be a bit overwhelming for people. And so the only time you're really going to see me go out to other apps is if I'm just really lacking in what I need to be able to involve everyone to meet the learning objectives. You know, I don't ever want the tech to get in the way of that.
Yeah.
Usually you can do things, you know, usually you can find a way to do things usually without having to have that outside app.
Yeah, and Evelyn's asking for tips on coaching trainers. So both Cassie and I have tons of resources on our respective websites on moving over to virtual training. So without sounding salesy, we both have tons of resources, and most of them are, a lot of them out there are available. You can take a look and download them for free. Cassie, you've got lots of resources too.
You have so many awesome ones. I'm going to go get your website too, Cindy. Okay.
Practice some more, get feedback. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, practice is a big one. Record yourself. That's what I make people do when I go through my programming. They have to record themselves and they have to watch themselves. And then we come in and we discuss it after we deal with our feelings. But just watch yourself, and, you know, are you happy with your camera angle, how you sound, what you're doing, you know, and just focusing on what do people need to be able to do when they're done with that moment. And I find that really helps me to focus on what it is that you need to do rather than who am I and how am I performing and what did I look like, sound like, act like. Take the focus off of myself and onto you, and it relieves a lot of pressure.
Yeah, agreed. Andrew's question is, hey, for activities, we like to set expectation that we'll randomly call on people if we don't have volunteers. And there's a little bit of I'm presenting and I'm going to call on you. And I'm wondering if shifting to, hey, we're here for a conversation. We're here to, and I may have some things to demonstrate or to teach, but how can we create a conversation? And so maybe it's they're talking in their small breakout groups, or they're talking with each other through chat or poll like we're doing today, so that becomes a last resort. Like, oh, I need to say, all right, Heidi, what do you think about these platforms we're talking about? What do you think, Cassie? Calling on people.
Conversational is big, and I tend to, I've been working on this a lot in the last few years of my entire career, this idea of how, when people ask questions, how do I say, yeah, and be part of a conversation rather than have to be the one who has to answer everything.
Mm-hmm.
How do I step out of that place of having to have the answer or having to have the idea? And, people might say something like, I don't want you to call on me. And I go, oh, okay, what would be better? What should we do? How could we be successful today?
Yeah.
And, you tell me what you'd like to do. And I'm more than happy to accommodate that, or I don't want to do the assignments. Okay, what should we do instead? And then, well, I put these together so that you could do this. And this is what was intended for the objectives. If we're not going to do them as assignments, what other ways could we do it? And they're like, okay. Or maybe they come up with something better. And I'm actually completely okay with that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I know we're just about out of time, everyone. Thank you for coming to our virtual training chat. Cassie and I are going to be around the rest of the conference. My super session on facilitator skills for modern virtual classrooms will be on Thursday morning, Eastern time. I hope you come. I'm going to be talking about some of the latest trends, some facilitation techniques. So I hope you will join that. And
you got a book coming out on that same topic, don't you?
I do, a little bit later this year. Facilitator skills in immersive environments, looking at hybrid, blended, immersive, virtual classrooms, how to be a fantastic facilitator in all of those. So
awesome. I can't wait to see what you have in that.
And Cassie, your Interact and Engage is getting updated as well. Lots more activities, right?
Yes, it's going to be 75 plus instead of 50. So look for the second edition of all those activities coming out in the fall. We're excited. Yeah.
Fantastic. Have a great conference, everyone. Go ahead, Cassie, you're about to share another resource.
I was going to say, if you guys are interested, I've started a new thing this year too, the Virtual Training Hero Hangout. And if you want to just hang out just at the end of the month, every Friday, the fourth Friday of the month, we're just hanging out and talking about virtual training stuff. I just put the link for you to register there. And the next one that we're going to do in February is on the 25th. And we're going to be talking about escape games in learning. And I've got an actual escape game prepared for the people that are coming. It's hard. I had to do it and it was hard. I was all sweaty. Come check it out and see what you think. Very cool. Yeah, it's time to let him go, huh? Thanks you all so much for coming today.